the minutes, are they okay with that? Last meeting?
I'm okay with the minutes and I move to approve as written.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I guess we're gonna move into the financial review, huh?
Budget is the entire year budget. Right? It's listed.
Yeah. When you say financial review, what all are we looking at?
This is all the fire department. So we go through their expenses, you know,
Okay.
their salaries, benefits,
Yep.
all that, so. Yep.
I don't know your system, but is there a way to just print the new purchases since the last time we reviewed it, so that doesn't have to look at the whole list always? You've got the old one, January, that was in the mailbox.
Yeah, that's not in the packet. The packet I sent out to everybody. in
Oh, you
email.
did group me like that, okay.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Yeah, I'd like to copy that too.
sure, you can have mine.
We say cleaning once a month.
Yes.
It's really not enough, because we've been hosting lots of fire classes.
So they come once a month to clean. Okay. It's $185 for the one cleaning. Okay.
Our tile floor down in the meeting room catches havoc because, you know, it only gets mopped once a month and all that sand and grit from all the boots this time of year just scratches it, living heck out of it.
Crazy to me in the finances.
Well, there's only one thing that isn't part of the budget, and that, I don't know if you want to talk about now or if you want to talk about during my report.
Oh, probably during your report, huh?
Yeah, that'd be fine. Yep.
Well, if nothing sticks out, I guess we'll move on, huh? So this would be Dale's report.
Oh, okay. Well, I typed it up like you requested last month, so I'll take any questions you have about it. So the bullet, like the fourth bullet down there with the fire inspections, that was good news. We got that all clarified. So we do qualify for the 2020 because the state recommended that we not do fire inspections for so many months. So we are, I did call her. She emailed me this response back, so we should be good to go. WITC training, we're running into some issues right now. You know, being a volunteer fire department, everybody assumes that it's automatic when you go to classes, like when we were young. You know, you go to class, as long as you're participating and you seem like you know what you're doing, you pass these classes. Well, it's not that way anymore. I'm even on the advisory committee for this group, and it falls on deaf ears at WITC. We had 2 people not make the officers class last time. We've got 2 people that were excluded from Part C of Firefighter 1 at this time. And that was just a stupid state law saying they got to complete Fire 1. So if they take AB, that's called entry level. If you add C to it, then they become certified, state certified fire one. If you start part C, but you don't finish it, or you don't take the test at the end, now you have 2 years to test it. And if you don't, you gotta take the whole thing over again. If you don't start part C, if you drop out after part B, it's indefinite how much time you have to complete part C. Well, we got 2 people caught in this cycle. I try to encourage them to get right in it and get the retesting and stuff done. We have 1 person that has to test this coming week, otherwise his 2 years are up and it won't count. And he would have to do that. He's in part C right now. He would have to do that about 4 weeks ahead of everybody else because his time is up. So we're running into some real significant issues with the state-based curriculum as far as our classes now. It's not a cakewalk anymore.
When you're speaking of a test, are we talking about something on paper and
Practicals. Yeah.
practical?
I have just finished the fire inspector class and I took my test 3 weeks ago on Wednesday night. And when I got there, they made me check my phone, my books, my coat. They checked my pockets. We sat in a room and we were only 2 people per room with a sealed test. It had 4 seals on it. I had to crack the seals while the instructor was watching me, and he watched us the whole time. And then when we were done, we had to reseal it to send it in.
So like NORAD.
Yeah, I was blown away. I was totally blown away by it.
Do they teach at fire departments anymore?
Yeah, we're hosting one right now. I kind of referred to that with our cleaning. We've actually hosted a class all the way since last August.
Okay.
But again, we fight the state curriculum and the state testing versus what the instructors are teaching. Some instructors deviate from that a little bit. And the tests are canned. They're written by NFPA through some of their. I took the test for fire inspector. I only got an 81 on it. And I passed it, but just some of the wording. And I know why some of our folks are having a hard time with it because it's ambiguous wording. And so it's a tough thing. And what ends up happening then as I've been sponsoring, we've changed our guidelines a little bit. I always told them the first one's free. Second one you have to pay for if you screw up and don't study hard enough. But I have reconsidered that now. I think to keep enough firefighters, we just have to encourage them to take it again and try to get it done. So.
How's that weighing out across the fire district with the other towns and municipalities? Everybody's struggling apparently.
And volunteers?
Yeah.
Oh, definitely. And I put a bullet in there too. We've noticed now, we had a structure fire last Thursday and we had pretty mediocre turnout. So we ended up calling Apple River to assist. And then our practices are a little bit low. So the chiefs and I are going to get together. We're going to have a meeting come this week. We have to drill Monday. Try to do some brainstorming and see what we can do. I think phone calls and stuff are in order to assure people that it's safe to come back to the firehouse. I have about 3 or 4 that insist I don't do enough making people wear masks. Well, then I got 3 or 4 that are hard-nosed about masks and they won't show up if I make them wear a mask. So I'm damned if I do, damned if I don't. So I've been trying to walk a fine line in between, but we're going to come up with some kind of strategy to reinvigorate everybody. It'll help right now because we've got a lot of activities going on. We're going to have a lot of CRP land this year, some really big chunks of CRP land we got to burn. So that helps bring people together. We also have 2 different houses that we're going to be burning in the early summer. So activity is good. This COVID thing, where we weren't seeing each other for a couple months, bad. And then all sorts of idle gossip happens and all sorts of stuff. So,
Mike, was your question more of what sparked, whatever I thought you were going with that question was, are we seeing from other municipalities that the success rate of passing these classes?
oh, the classes, no, it's across the board.
Yeah, that was exactly what I was saying. Thanks, Jeff.
I'm in high school teacher, as you know, and I would say a C student in high school would find these tests challenging now. Especially if you get flustered taking the test. because it doesn't seem like there's any flexibility there at all. And then the practical day, I have my practical test this Saturday. I gotta go up to Rice Lake. It's a 4-hour test and you gotta do it practically. So written, and then you gotta actually do it with your hands. So it's a 2-part test, and we've been working on it. I am on the committee for the WITC. Myself and 2 other chiefs have been pretty hard on them, saying that, especially this timetable one, doesn't make sense. If you don't ever start it, you got all the time in the world to do it. But if you start it and something comes up in your schedule, you have to quit. Now you got a 2-year time limit.
Is that a state section or WITC?
Okay. It's a technical college, not WITC. It's technical college. So in our state, the education is being piped down from us from our state technical college board.
Okay.
It's not by law. It's not by, it's not a government department doing it. It's the technical college, Angie, forget Angie's last name right now. She's the head of it, and she's got an advisory committee, and they just actually met on the same topic, and they decided not to do anything about it. So we're going to start voicing our opinions a little bit stronger. Some of that stuff for our rural areas, we got to be a little more practical. People are busy.
Yeah. Well, it's probably a fight against it, but also prepare. How do you? It sounds like it's not going away. So how do we get our firefighters actually ready to pass the test? And quite frankly, having a firefighter that can demonstrate their skills in a fire is what we all want, right? And I can see where the technical college board is coming from, but they're also probably not people out fighting fires either, so they don't have that practical experience. But
And
we can
to
sit and
answer
fight
your
against
question,
it.
what I've been doing about the last 4 or 5 hires I've had, I told them, I'm not accepting entry level anymore. I want you to work hard. I want you to get through Fire 1, because once you have that diploma, you're good. There's no time lapse on that. There's no sunset on it. Once you get these diplomas, except for EMR or EMT, we don't have any refreshers. Once you get that diploma, you're good forever.
You can still be a firefighter with entry level.
Only on our department. The state.
Oh,
the
yeah,
new state,
yes.
The new state,
If you want to
330,
go to another department, then you have to be.
and it won't transfer.
Right.
So they won't transfer the AD to another department. So Rick is referring to our bylaws, and our bylaws, it still states that it's entry level to fight fires with us. Well, it's entry level, and you have to have a certified burn trailer or burn from WITC, and then we're allowing firefighters to participate at fires. 2 problems with that. They can't take that AB certification anywhere else. That's why I encourage them to get Fire 1. Once you have that, it goes to any department, anywhere, even goes to a full-time department. The other problem is this MABUS I talked about last month. I can't send that firefighter anywhere on a MABUS call unless they're Fire 1.
Another big city rule.
Yep. Other things I'm sure you read on your own. The last thing I'll bring up, and it's part of your financial review, the quote I had when I budgeted for our topper on that truck was $1,600 less than I anticipated. Now that we got a new quote and a little bit of design change, it's $1,600 more than that original $5,000 I asked for in our truck budget for this year. So I called your president here, and I got the verbal okay to go ahead and schedule it, because I feel like there's enough money in my truck repair fund to cover this, barring any major events to any of the big trucks. And that's kind of a crapshoot every year anyhow. We never know when that's gonna happen.
This makes
it's gonna happen.
this makes that truck a year-round.
Year-round.
truck. Even though that high-pressure system is an NFPA
Right.
approved for interior.
Right, and that's,
Is that around the corner, you hope, or what?
NFPA is gonna be years, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna take another class in it, and then, we're gonna have them give us a certificate at least, so we can start implementing it. So the high pressure truck, the one with the new topper, will go out first with just 2 firefighters on. And that tactic will be to to do a exterior attack through an opening, no interior without backup. And that's the tactic that we're using kind of now. So that cover will allow us to do that year round. We just had a second structure fire this weekend, and we actually did that because we filled it hoping it would stay warm. And they took it out this last weekend to another structure fire very similar to our big one, fire in the wall, electrical fire in the wall. So 2 people were able to get out quicker. We don't have to wait for 4 or 6 people in that big truck. They went right out there and took care of it basically before the big rigs got there. So it's a quick attack.
Do I dare ask how the turnout was on that fire?
Better. The first call, the first one I'm referring to last Thursday was the middle of the day, 2 o'clock. And then what should have happened was they should have repaged it about 4:30 and let people know that we're still there. Because a lot of these fires, we put them out in 45 minutes and we go home. And so our communication's got to be a little bit better for these long hauls. We finished up there about 8:30 at night. So then I went back, there was a rekindle at 10. So, but we're going to work on that too with the communication and repaging, especially paying attention. All fire departments have an issue during the day because everybody works outside of town now. And the ones that are working in town, some of them aren't even allowed to go. So sadly to say.
And then monthly meetings, do you usually have like an instant debrief?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep, so we do our normal business, financial stuff and stuff, and I've added a debriefing for all our medical and our fire calls. That's where some of these things actually get discussed.
Okay,
Can I ask a question about the fire inspections? So it sounds like we're good for 2020 for the whole year. Does that mean that we're not going to continue to do fire inspections because we've already met the mark of what the state says we have to do?
No, we have to do all 180 of them within the next 6 months.
Okay.
And then we have to do them again the second 6 months. So I put in my notes here, and if you read it, I'm still encouraging the municipalities or your board to come up with a recommendation to just write a simple ordinance saying that all we have to do is once a year. It's legal. There are certain legal buildings we have to do twice a year, nursing homes, schools. But, you know,
I talked to
Joe
Lee Jones
Blow's
about
repair
that.
shop down the street, if I do an unannounced visit, I get the sense that that's the way it's normally, and they don't pretend to be otherwise. So in most cases, I feel personally once a year is enough.
Because twice a year, I'm sure, at least for the town of Lincoln, I don't think it pencils out at all on the labor of the inspection. But, you know, I know things gotta be done, but we would kind of advocate that once a year.
And I can certainly share with you, I don't need to wait for our next meeting. I'll share, Rick Sommerfeld, which is this inspector that'll be coming in the next couple of weeks again. He gave me a copy of it. He's a chief over in Chippewa Fire District, and they did it. They don't see the need for most of these buildings to be twice a year.
Is there a criteria for that? I noticed that this didn't have a gas company building on it, and I know years ago, Waterman used to stop in every now and again for it. And then our other areas like Grantsburg, our border station at Grantsburg was annually inspected twice.
Yep.
But
And to be
no
honest
other
with-
municipality.
To be honest with you, we caught another one in the last couple of months, the Catholic Charities.
Okay.
We've been out there 3 times now in a month and a half. And I went back to the station and I looked for fire inspection information, and they're not on the list. And I did bring this up to Patty with this building. There's guidelines that there's supposed to be a fire inspection before you give out occupancy. I know this because I took the class now. Anyhow, but we don't have a flow through checks and balances as far as when somebody opens a new business. If it's not obvious to us, it doesn't get on our list. The one down the street further, the old Ford garage, it's really important, I feel, that we should have some kind of occupancy permit, and part of that should be a check off. You know, that it gets notified the fire department, especially on occupancy changes. That was a garage, now it's a gift shop. That totally changes the way the inspection has to go.
It still fits in the same thing, same category though, I think, from a zoning standpoint, doesn't it?
Zoning,
For
sure.
commercial, yeah.
But the problem is, you know, we got 15 different classifications for fire inspections now. And that's an assembly building now, which falls same as a church, same as a school. But before it was a garage, and all you gotta do is make sure the exits are open.
Yeah.
So I would like to see us work on that too. I don't know, it could just simply be part of the paper, I'm sure we give a permit, a final inspection permit to the building inspector.
Well, somebody like the electrical inspector gets his information somehow. Most likely when a new business moves into an existing building, they have to do something like that. So where's he get his information?
I don't think they do. Not that I'm aware of, have you, Patty? There's nothing, unless you change the occupancy type,
That's exactly right.
which is basically retail,
Mercantile.
it doesn't, there's no, nothing, I mean, I went from a coffee shop to a shirt shop, you don't have to tell anybody or notify anybody.
Okay.
If I went to a welding shop, now you're more of an industrial thing, but as long as you don't change occupancy, I don't think we have anything. I don't know of any place that's, maybe Milwaukee or, Milwaukee Madison might do something, but.
It just, I guess I was kind of flabbergasted by the fact that we don't get notified. I mean, especially like the Ford garage, or when they redid some of these apartments upstairs on some of these retail buildings here. That's different classification, and it should be on the list, so.
Yeah, I know we were inspected in the past,
Sure.
or that building was.
I look back for
And that's
records.
that's as simple as getting a hold of Linda. And Linda could give you all the new business.
I look back in our records, and prior to my taking the records down, I did not see 1 year where we completed fire inspections. So again, the inspector from the state, just like the fire classes, they put the hammer down now and say, it's gotta be this way. So that's kind of why we got hit last year.
I don't think we went back far enough, because we had them done when I was chief, but that's getting on to be 12 years ago, or 10, 11 years ago.
I know that we're putting,
Because we were
at that
inspected,
building.
yeah.
But I would guess the paperwork may have been lost or whatever.
There's, after you do the inspection, I'm sure if you could put it on a computer, if you could, or
And that's what we did.
microfiche, or whatever it happened to be at the time, but there's box after box of slips down there that used to be, I'm sure they got pitched, because,
Right.
there's
And
no,
Daryl might have got rid of that stuff,
yeah,
because I didn't find
there's
it.
no history, or very little, and, within the space, you do them twice a year, every business in town's got 4 pieces of paper at least, now you got 200 times 200, that's a box full of paper every time you inspect, basically, and.
So if we get back to, except for the facilities that have to be inspected twice a year, whose ordinance is it?
Each of you would have to pass it.
I don't believe we have an ordinance. I think the city of Amory is telling us about the inspections. I don't think we
I
have an
think
ordinance.
isn't that not part of the contract that says that the ones we did have anyway, that said that, when you signed up for, or signed the contract, that Amory would provide the,
Services.
It's very possible.
inspections
I'll
and so
speed
on.
read it.
Could it be done through the contract or the agreement instead of each town?
Well, I would think. so.
I'll ask Rick.
mean,
I'll send you that document of the example of it.
I mean, I would.
He would be the man to ask,
because
because he's the one that'll fail us.
My thought would be, we sign on to the contract, and if
Yeah.
the contract says only, once a year, I would think that would cover it.
Yeah, I can see your point, but I'm thinking it's not gonna work that way, because believe it or not, I am not your fire chief. I am not your fire chief. And I'm not your fire chief, because you never swore me in. And I asked this Rick Sommerfeld two times ago when we got inspected. He said, have you been sworn in? I said, yeah, I went to the city council, they swore me in. He says, well, what about the rest of the townships? So that's how it's
I
getting.
think somebody should get him by the throat, because that's a bunch of baloney.
So I have
There's-
3 fire chiefs that all have to be sworn in by town hall.
According to him.
Okay. I guess I was.
Oh, by the way, in town of Alden,
I don't think anybody does that
No,
that I'm aware of.
town of Alden, Emery Fire does the 2% filing for the other fire departments. Because unless we certify, you lose all your.
Doesn't say how often,
It's not prorated.
okay.
But it does say that
but,
Amy,
yeah, it doesn't say how often, it just says that.
Says we will.
yeah,
Provide the fire inspections.
yes.
And I'm
So
sure
could
all
you
the
put
time-
language in there saying that it'll be once a year?
Well,
I can see where that might work, because it's contract.
we're gonna retweak this anyhow, I guess, so.
I mean, it might be easier to do it once there than have each of us do it at a,
Right,
you know.
because then you gotta have a review and stuff, right?
Right, if we change the contract, all we gotta do is change the back page, so.
Yeah, it's just something more that
Pretty
we
much.
gotta fart around with.
Well, and I'm also thinking that, you know, we've got another fire department that does most of our fire inspections, so how are we gonna deal with them? So if they only.
Because Amory doesn't, how many buildings do you have that Amory would inspect? Not
Maybe
many.
Little Falls Church? I mean, I don't know what else.
County, Cenex, Country Store,
Well,
No,
those
no,
are all
that's.
that's Blackbird, that's right.
Okay.
Alden would be
Little
the
Falls
new
Church.
venue out on Party Barn.
Aleworks.
Shed.
Aleworks. No,
No,
that's
that's
Blackbird.
Blackbrook.
That's Blackbird. What about the new shed that got the license for the weddings?
Yes,
I did that one.
yes, yep, by Glass House.
We did the group home.
Okay.
And the only other.
Yeah,
one-
rightfully.
The only other one I can think of, and that, I don't know, is that in our area, but now the, Alden Town Hall? Used to be, but it's
That would-
not.
I believe that's covered out of laundry stuff.
Yeah,
Little Falls Church would be the big one. But yeah, we do the minority of them, but we do the certification.
May I make a suggestion? On your master list for the fire inspections, you've got the area. Can we have that be the municipalities?
Yeah, I was thinking about that.
Yeah,
What we were hoping to do there is try to save mileage with our fire inspections.
mhm.
So if you're doing something in the south, you do all the south ones, so you're not bouncing north, south, east, west.
But then
But it
maybe
hasn't worked
identify
well.
them as municipality, then everybody here can see
That would be
Right.
good.
what municipality.
That's a good suggestion. We're not really using that area anyhow.
Right, so maybe just make that municipality.
Sure.
And I'm assuming that there is a state statute that dictates which ones have to be 6 months and which
Yeah.
ones on an annual basis. You know what the statute
years
is?
ago, that's what, Amory used to have a fire district, which at that time was delineated the areas that were highly prone to contiguous fires, i.e. anything that had walls touching or, you know, was it, for instance, the Bremer Bank wouldn't qualify because it's nothing there, but anything on downtown,
It
and
can-
and those were done quarterly.
Which makes sense,
When
because
I,
if
when I
something's
was,
bad,
yeah,
that could
when I
affect the whole
first got to
block.
be chief, we did those quarterly.
Right.
And,
Huh?
oh,
What,
what, you know,
Mhm.
They're built before sheetrock days.
yeah, yeah. And, you know, but, so we changed that, we went away from, that was just as simple as changing the words, because, you know, because, again, 4 times a year. It isn't that you couldn't, that the buildings couldn't maybe stand it, you know, or the occupancy couldn't stand to be done twice a year. I think that the issue, without question, for especially a volunteer fire department, is most of those have to be done during daylight hours, Monday through Friday. Anybody that's worth a damn is working those hours, period. And you can't, I mean, even the folks at McDonald's get $15 an hour now, or $14.50. You just can't
Well, some of these
And
gift
you
shops,
can't
and
get
they're
up.
only open every other weekend.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's been a
Exactly.
challenge, or churches, try to get in a church once. Call, leave messages, and it's like 3 weeks before you get into one.
So can we get an answer to Chad's question? Is there some statute that describes which one are one time a year, which ones are two?
It's on this example that I'll send you guys.
Okay, perfect.
So before we move into capital investments here, is everybody okay with that $1,600 tweak on enclosing that one rig? I mean, $1,600, missing that on a bid on fire equipment, that's easy enough done, just because it's red and says fire on it, guys.
I'd make a motion to accept that.
Second. All in favor?
I guess, just a question, I mean, I appreciate that we made a motion to accept it, but would we need to do that? I mean, I would
Well-
imagine the chairman has some discretion and up to, what's the dollar amount?
Just affirms that he, I would necessarily think we'd have to have.
Right, I think I could have ignored it, but I didn't.
I think if I was asking for something above and beyond my truck budget,
Right.
maybe, but
Yeah,
I'm thinking that we can work it right into that truck maintenance fund.
Yeah.
So we're not doing the motion?
Excuse me?
Are we not doing the
No,
motion?
the motion was
Yeah.
made and second and approved, we
Yeah.
voted already, right?
yeah.
I just want to be sure, yeah.
We're into the vehicle matrix, huh?
I think all I changed to update it was the status of squad 8. I didn't have in there the dates and stuff, so that's all I changed on this document. Oh, I also changed tender 6. I had the wrong date. I said it was a 97 chassis, it's a 94.
We're already almost 3 years behind on replacing that one.
I could never get the approval to replace it.
And then it
Yeah,
was
you
like,
get another one of those. I didn't get Dale's, the stuff that Dale sent.
Oh,
and then next year, it looks like you want almost $500,000 for engine 2 replacements and brush 7, right?
Brush 7 we just went through, so I guess that's why I brought it up for you to discuss. Brush 7 is in pretty good shape yet. Engines, NFPA, again, we don't always follow NFPA because they're strong suggestions, but NFPA would like you to replace engines every 20 years. And we made a commitment, I think, when Rick was in yet, that we wanted to go on a 30-year rotation. So I just put it on paper and showing you guys.
yeah, we've seen it before. Well, I guess I mentioned before that somehow we gotta spread that out, because if we buy those 2 trucks 1 year apart, we can gain a damn thing 25, 30 years from now.
My only thought would be, to replace the brush truck, the 2002. They just, no matter if you saved every fire that it went to, you still saved nothing, because it's a grass truck. It's just burning grass.
Yeah.
You can't use it for house fires, and consequently, if it still works, I don't see any reason whatsoever to replace it. Well, if your feet go through the floorboard when you get in, okay, now we gotta do that, but otherwise, I don't.
And I maybe should have put that on there. The 2002, that Ford 350, actually had a new box put on it. The first year I was chief, so 5 years ago. So we put a new box on it. That truck had been rolled and totaled. So we took the box off, we put a makeshift flatbed on for a while, which had one of those totes that you see for like syruping for a tank. So we took all that off and we had a professional put some cabinetry on it and mount the pump and stuff, so. The box itself is only 5-6 years old. So I don't disagree with Rick. I would rather put our money into life-saving equipment. And that means life-saving equipment for my firefighters too. If you have an engine go down while you got people in the door, it gets serious in a hurry.
So you're thinking that Ace here suggested that maybe engine 2?
I would like to look into, oh, go ahead, ask your question, I'm sorry.
Well, I guess, I mean, so what you're talking about is, you know, if you replace engine 2 and then the ladder within the same couple of years, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's too close. I mean, it's
Right.
unfortunate it happened that way to begin with.
Well, it is, so would we be looking at putting a priority on changing engine 2 rather than the ladder?
Just by the number of calls and things we use it for, yeah, that would be my inclination. However, keep in mind with the ladder, it's one inspection away from not making it.
Yeah.
So at any time when they certify my ladder, you know, they test it, and if something happened where it didn't test, it's a 30-year-old truck, I think it's done. You know, and you're not gonna put hundreds of thousands into fixing the ladder.
But engine 2 has got a lot of spark left in it.
I know.
So what's it cost to refurbish? I mean, Apple River Fire is running refurbished trucks. I don't know where they bought them, who refurbishes them, but they're certified.
No, actually, it's not. They got a pump at our last fire that was running water, so. But I know what you're saying, and the ladders, they've been recertifying some of those. They take it back to Pierce, they strip it down to the frame, reinforce the frames, redo the ladder, and put the box back on. We can certainly check into prices on something like that.
You're talking about engine 2.
Same way,
Right.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I don't think we ought to stick any money into refurbishing that area. I don't think we should. That thing came from the wrong environment to begin with, you know, but I think engine 2 is a pretty simple truck. I mean, it's side suction, front suction, 1,500 gallon per minute with a 60 series Detroit in it. I mean, in its day, it was bulletproof. And going through just the mechanics of the truck chassis itself can't be too serious because of the lack of miles that are on it.
Brakes and the air brake systems have to be redone after that many years, because I just did it with Tender 6. The pumpkins and back and stuff all dried out and they had to be
Yeah.
replaced.
The only thing I would say about recertifying one is that, you know, if that fits in something that we can do for a period of 10 years,
That's what I'm
to
saying.
extend that life for 10 years,
Spread it out.
Stated again?
but once you get into that, then you're almost forced into staying with that, you know, changing that to a 4-year. And I personally wouldn't advocate going any more than trying to extend it for 10 years, i.e. that truck is 40 years old and at that point in time. And, you know, that's like going out and buying a brand new 1980 Silverado. You know, I just, no matter how good you were, how nice you were to it, it's got issues, you know. The other thing I would say about that truck is that truck, I believe, went to
Yeah.
more fires in its lifetime than all the preceding engines that the city of Amory has owned. So, you know, just because we ended up with more runs with it.
Also, that truck had body work done on it once,
Yeah,
but that should be as good as.
body work something as long as it, you know.
One of the things I worry about is, obviously, we take really good care of our equipment. You go in there and when we tour there, I don't know, next month or whenever we want to do that, you're gonna look at our equipment and gonna say, that's not 30 years old. Because it looks nice, it's washed every time, you know, but I worry about the mechanical parts, the brakes, the airlines, the pump. So that's what Ace is talking about. You could have that refurbished, but then you still end up with a 30-year-old, 40-year-old chassis.
My question is, you know, you got $400,000 down there, and, I'm wondering if that's how realistic that price is. It's no secret, because I've told everybody that I know that the last one that we bought was way overkill. We spent $450,000 on a truck, and 150 of it was not necessary. I wasn't on the committee, neither was Chad, but the folks that didn't know what in the hell they were buying when they spent that kind of money.
Well, I can tell you that we do not need a 6-man cab.
No.
The big one, the engine one, is a 6-man cab. And in reality, in our response times today, I get more ISO points with 4 people in that truck and out the door in 4 minutes than I do waiting another minute for 2 more people. So I would never be in favor of a 6-man cab, which is probably $75,000 savings right there.
Well, yeah, and the fact that they put you know, I agree with an onboard phone system, you know, that you just flip on there like that. The idea is that saves you you know, a crew when you can do that, because you have chemical, you know, the ability to fight a fire with chemical. That which is, at this point in time, is a PFA, which is also under the gun these days. But, you know, there was a brand new Hearst tool put on that last truck. That's $70,000 that we had one that was 1.5 years or 2 years old. We spent $70,000 for another one. So I say that to tell you that no matter what, I think we'll scrutinize the bids.
And that's the nice thing
You
about
gotta
having a
get-
board like this.
You gotta get what you need.
Get some
but
inside, yeah.
you know,
I have no problem justifying everything on it.
yeah.
So then you're advocating
I think we should find out
we're
what.
gonna buy a tender and an engine in the same year, and then the next year we're gonna buy an aerial.
I wouldn't advocate buying another tender for a while, personally. And my thought process on that old tender is, we have Mavis and we have mutual aid, and I don't think that it's a requirement that we spend $300,000 to haul water. That just is, not when we have an aerial ladder, and we have a quick attack and a high pressure system and a boat that we share, as we're called, to all the area fire departments. I mean, we got called here a while ago. I think you got called down to Cedar Lake for a rescue.
Yeah.
You know, the old days of we have to have everything, and 6 miles down the road, they have to have everything. And 6 miles past them, they have to have everything. I think we just.
The only caveat to that, and that's what I tried to get through last month with the Mavis, is remember Mavis is 50-50. So we will not be able to supply a tender to another department if we only have one.
But on the other hand, we have done that for the lifetime of anybody here, and it's not burned us, you know, on a long period of time. But if Clear Lake calls and says we need water, we go. If that interferes with Mavis, I'm in favor of interfering with Mavis, because I think that's what you do when your next door department says we need water. If Spring Valley calls and says we need a Mavis attachment, I agree with that, because that's a long ways away. But, you know, you can't.
But you're basically unprotected then within your fire district.
But you got,
Because you have no
if
water.
you go to Clear Lake, then you can call Apple River for first response mutual aid. There's a lot of water around here. Like I said,
The other thing
if you
too-
buy one for $50,000, I'd be all for it. But,
No,
you
that's
know,
not.
300 grand, that's.
So do we keep, given the comments that I see in here that it's not legal and it's not safe, why do we still have it? is it now a liability that we acknowledge that it's not safe and it's not legal, but we still have it, we take it out on runs?
What we do internally to make it safer is I tell everybody we don't drive it over 45 miles an hour.
It won't hardly go fast.
Well,
Not driven this way.
the real savings on that for any water hauler, except now they have to have baffles everywhere so that the load doesn't shift. That truck is an unbaffled truck. However, if it's full,
It is.
you
And
don't get slosh. If it's empty, you don't get slosh. So
And some would say it's grandfathered in.
the criteria is you either run it full or empty. If you go up to a grass fire, you take 10 gallons of it or 100 gallons out of there, before you come back in, you dump 2,900 gallons in the ditch because that's
that's
the way
kinda
that
what
you
we
be
do.
safe. So,
Okay, I'm just bringing it up.
no,
That's
good
the
question,
actual
good
practice,
question.
Otherwise, I see this from a legal perspective and say, all right, somebody rolls it down the hill and gets killed. Now, we knew this and we allowed it to happen.
I don't have a problem personally retiring it because it's trucks use been served its use, right?
That's the second truck under the same tank.
Yes, it is.
The truck was just, we did a DOT on it last year. That's when they put all the new brakes and stuff in it. But like Rick said, it's still not baffled.
But we can meet that criteria, full or empty.
Well, that's, how we've gotten by with it since its inception was that, my father-in-law was a milk hauler, you get a half a tank in there, it goes, that's how it does.
Turning.
Yeah.
There's only about 3 roads that we worry about. One is K.
So what direction do we want to give on this?
Are you saying you want to retire the tender?
I think as long as we can use it till something major happens with it, Dale's got criteria that's, on how it's used, that it's not driven over 45 miles an hour, which is fine. Probably shouldn't be, or probably should never have been, but, at some point in time, we've repaired leaks and stuff like that in that truck, I know.
Oh, I know, yeah.
And, if it works, fine, but when it stops working, then I think it goes away,
So for now, we would hang on to tender 6 and hang on to the brush rig too, then 7.
Is the brush rig the new one?
Well,
No, that's a 2002.
that brush rig, that's the one that,
The 350 that was rolled.
scheduled for 2022. I thought that's what you were talking about, Rick, that, unless your feet are going through the floorboards, is that the truck you're talking about?
I believe.
The
it was.
grass rig, yeah.
Right.
I believe it was.
Yeah, that's.
And I'm okay with
It's a
that.
decent truck, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, it's.
Yeah, well, since we put the new back on, it's,
Sure.
it's got a baffle tank now and stuff. We were facing the same thing there with that 275 gallon tote. There was no baffles in it and it would do that.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah, I've taken care of that truck. I have no problem with postponing that 5 or 10 years even.
So we're gonna postpone that, we'll postpone water tender, and then I guess we're gonna pursue engine 2 then.
And there
I think
again,
it is
we need some just
Numbers.
asking prices, I think, don't you?
Right.
And I,
Well, this is discussion today, I mean, discussion recommendations, so,
and we're a year out yet.
pardon me?
We're a year out. If
Yeah.
we start coming together with specs for replacement of engine 2 and take it delivery the year after, it's still close enough
I
to
was gonna
30
say, if
years.
you do it this fall,
Right.
even,
Will that then become engine 1?
Not in my thoughts, because engine 1 has so many things on it as far as extrication, and we would not want to duplicate that again. So I would spec it out as a second pumper it would have a crew cab on it, because obviously nowadays to go anywhere, you gotta have at least 3 or 4 firefighters. But I would not put the jaws on it, I would just buy it for what it is, engine 2, okay? Which would save a lot of money. But I do want to make clear that I am in favor of replacing tender 6 because of the ISO ratings, because of the demand for water when we go out to our own fires, and the demand for any mutual aid. So that would be my recommendation to you guys, is try to figure something out there. If we got to do used, fine, but then keep in mind, we're in the same situation, we're going to go with ladder and engine 2. If you buy a 10-year-old tender, it'll be within 6 years of the one that we have right now.
Well, I think it's for me, it's a hard decision to say, yes, we should do that, or no, we shouldn't, until we have some hard numbers. So I guess if we're
Yeah,
scoping out and specking out engine 2's boats.
I was
Spec
keeping
out
in mind,
tender.
there's a couple of resale places online. I was looking for something 2013 to 2018. And there's tenders out there, around 240, 250.
Bring us some numbers then, I guess, and things that we can have a discussion about instead of just guesses.
we're talking about numbers on both engine 2 and,
Yes, we
And
can
the
start
tender?
looking at them and instead of,
If you replace tender 6, would that then become the primary tender?
Depends on what we could afford to replace it with.
Yeah.
If we went new and we had a pump on it, it would. But if it's gonna be a resale, then you gotta deal with what they are allowing. Most of the ones that I saw used only have a single dump. Our first out tender has 3, so you can approach a fire from any direction, yeah. So I guess it would depend on what's available. I can bring numbers all we want, but those numbers are only good for the day you see them, because when it's auction, and it's gone the day after, so.
that still would tell us what they're
Sure.
going for anyhow.
And I'll share websites too, so you guys can kind of keep an eye on them along with me. I mean, there's a couple of really big resales now. There's things we could do too, about changing, if you do a new tank on an older chassis, we can do a different style tank. This one is a double walled, now they come out with a new plastic fiberglass single wall, kind of like the one that Allied got there. But I'd be glad to pull some pictures and prices and timeliness of it. Like I said, by the time we meet again, all the things I share with you probably are sold. But it'll give you a ballpark, so over time you can kind of know, if you want to set, sometime in the future, if you want to set a $275,000 limit on it, which I would kind of encourage, because then when we see one, we already have it pre-approved and we can jump on it, kind of like we did with the ladder. But yeah, I'll share used,
So
is that what I'm
replacement,
hearing? Used, tendered, new chassis for a pumper.
Yeah, I know, I would.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm not in favor of another tender period, but, but I do think your first, those 2 engines that you're required to have them, that's a frontline piece of equipment. I personally am in favor of buying new. I mean, I'd rather watch my bucks a little bit on, not a little bit, but a lot on a new piece of equipment and get what you need, but not spend a lot on vessying it up for things that maybe are that are already duplicated on another engine, but.
so engine 2 would be basically, might have a front suction like the engine 2 has got.
We'd probably do a rear, because they work better, but it'll have either a front or a rear.
Rear onboard generator, 4-person cab,
4%.
so we're 1,500, probably single stage pump. We're not doing 2-stage anymore, are you?
No.
So, I mean, that's,
It would almost be a new version of the old engine 2 with a 4-person cab.
right, okay.
You wouldn't have any extrication. you would have the generator, I mean, that's important for us, lighting and all that stuff, but.
If it's so damn old.
I would do the manual
$400
controls.
Take it home.
There's nothing wrong with manual control.
No, absolutely not. Those, the, electrically actually valves are nice, but they're expensive and they don't always work. I'll never even get a hold of them and put both feet on the,
Somebody will get it to move, right?
yeah.
I'll do that. I'll have examples of both for you.
Okay, we have discussed that, I guess.
How do you want me to share them? Through you,
Yeah,
or
give it
is
to me and then
there
I'll-
a folder I can dump things in, or?
You can just send them to me.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I'll share with everybody.
So if we're gonna go into closed session here, we have to close the open meeting, and I have to have a motion to do that.
I don't think we have to close the open meeting.
Yes, we do.
We don't with anything we do, but you do have to make a motion and a voice vote to go into closed session. And then anything after you come out, you go into open session, or that's what we do anyway. You go into open session and then adjourn the meeting.
Maybe we can cover both. I move then that we move into closed session. I was gonna say that we're not adjourning the open session.
Right.
Cause you may want to take some action.
reconvene.
Right, then we reconvene.
Right.
So what we usually do is.
We're moving into into closed session.
Yeah, so we have a movement and then a second, and then I'll document the time. So.